Korean Mafia boss agreed to one last blind date. The black girl who showed up changed his life Part 3. The Maldives was supposed to be romantic. Pristine beaches, overwater bungalows, and the kind of crystal clear water that looked photoshopped but wasn't. What the travel brochures didn't mention was that it was significantly less romantic when your husband's second-in-command was staying in the bungalow next door with a woman he'd apparently been seeing for 6 months and never mentioned. "Explain to me again," Nia said, standing on their private deck in a bikini that had made Min Jae forget how to form complete sentences. "Why June is on our honeymoon?" Min Jae, who was attempting to look relaxed in swim trunks while clearly calculating security perimeters, had the grace to look embarrassed. He insisted. "Something about adequate protection, and you almost got kidnapped in Seoul. That was 3 months ago. My crew has long memories." He pulled her close, his hands settling on her waist. "Also, mother threatened to come herself if I didn't bring security, and I draw the line at honeymooning with my mother in the adjacent bungalow." Fair point. Nia spotted June on the neighboring deck, looking uncomfortable in vacation clothes, a Hawaiian shirt that someone, definitely Hannah, had forced him into. "Wait, is that a woman with him?" Min Jae squinted. "That's Min Seo. She runs our communications network. Tech specialist. Very good at her job." He paused. "I didn't know they were dating? Together? Secretly in love while you were too busy brooding to notice." "I don't brood. Baby, brooding is your default setting." Before Min Jae could defend his emotional availability, June appeared at the edge of their deck, looking mortified and followed by a petite woman with purple streaked hair and the confident energy of someone who'd hacked government databases for fun. "Boss," June said, his neck turning red, "this is Min Seo, my girlfriend. Of 6 months. I was going to tell you, but there was the wedding planning and the Park Hwang situation, and you're babbling," Min Seo interrupted, extending her hand to Nia with a grin. "Hi, I'm the reason June's been mysteriously working late every Thursday. Also, I apologize for crashing your honeymoon, but someone she shot June a look insisted we needed to provide security, and I thought, free Maldives vacation. Why not?" Nia liked her immediately. "Does Mrs. Choi know about you?" "God, no. June's terrified of telling her because she'll immediately start planning another wedding." Min Seo flopped into one of their deck chairs like she owned it. "Which fair? Your wedding was beautiful, but also looked exhausting." Mrs. Choi made the wedding planner cry twice. 3 times, Min Jae and June said simultaneously. "Look," Min Seo continued, pulling out her phone, "I've set up a secure perimeter. Motion sensors on the beach approaches, encrypted communications, and a drone doing periodic sweeps. You two can do honeymoon things without worrying about rival gangs crashing your romantic moments." "You have a drone?" Nia looked between them. "On our honeymoon, it's a very small drone," June offered weakly. "It has a camera," Min Seo added helpfully, "and infrared capabilities, and possibly a small weapon system, but that's only for emergencies." Min Jae pinched the bridge of his nose, his signature move when his carefully controlled world descended into chaos. "Min Seo, please tell me you didn't arm a surveillance drone for a honeymoon." "Okay, I won't tell you that." Nia started laughing, that full-body laugh that Min Jae had married her for. "You know what? Fine. We're honeymooning with a security detail and an armed drone. This is my life now. Our life. This is perfectly normal." "Nothing about us is normal," Min Jae murmured, pulling her closer. "Thank God for that." The next 3 days were surprisingly perfect. Once Nia accepted that romantic getaway meant something different when you married into organized crime, she leaned into it. They snorkeled, with June doing security sweeps of the reef. They had candlelit dinners, while Min Seo monitored communications for threats. They watched sunsets, with drone footage providing backup surveillance. On the 4th night, they were having drinks at the resort bar when Min Seo's laptop started beeping urgently. She'd set up a mobile command center at a corner table, which the resort staff had stopped questioning after June tipped them enough money to buy a small car. "We have a problem," Min Seo said, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "Chatter on the dark web. Someone's asking questions about boss's location." The vacation atmosphere evaporated instantly. Min Jae's expression shifted. Gone was the relaxed husband, replaced by the crime lord who'd built his reputation on calculated violence. What kind of questions? His voice was ice, the kind that suggests someone's planning something stupid. Min Seo pulled up encrypted messages, strings of code that meant nothing to Nia, but clearly meant everything to the others. It's coming from Wait. She typed faster. It's the Kong faction. They're making moves while you're out of the country. The Kong faction? June was already on his phone, presumably alerting the Seoul crew. They've been quiet for months. They were waiting, Min Jae said grimly. Waiting for me to be distracted. Vulnerable. Nia felt cold despite the tropical heat. What does this mean? Min Jae looked at her, and she saw the war happening behind his eyes. The man who loved her versus the leader who had responsibilities. It means our honeymoon might be ending early. Like hell it is. Nia stood up, channeling every ounce of vice principal authority she possessed. You're not letting some wannabe gangster ruin our honeymoon because they think you're soft now. We have 4 more days in paradise, and we're using them. Nia, no. Listen to me. She grabbed his face, forcing him to look at her. You spent your entire life letting this empire control every decision. This is our time. So here's what's going to happen. Min Seo and June are going to do their tech magic security thing. You're going to trust your crew in Seoul to handle the situation. And we're going to finish our honeymoon like 2 people who refuse to let fear make our decisions. Min Seo looked at June. I like her. Everyone likes her, June muttered. It's unsettling how much everyone likes her. Min Jae stared at Nia. This woman who'd walked into his life and refused to let him hide behind his reputation or his responsibilities. Finally, he smiled. Small but real. For more days, he agreed. But I'm doubling security. You can quadruple it for all I care. Just don't let them put cameras in our bungalow. Min Seo coughed. About that. Am I an SEO? Kidding. I'm kidding. Mostly. Later that night, lying in bed with moonlight streaming through the windows and the sound of waves providing soundtrack, Nia felt Min Jae's hand drift to her stomach, a gesture he'd been doing more frequently lately, unconscious and tender. What are you thinking about? She asked softly. The future. What it looks like with you in it. He was quiet for a moment. My father used to say the empire was everything. That family was a luxury we couldn't afford in this life. But you make me think he was wrong. He was wrong, Nia said firmly. You can have both. We can have both. Can we? We're going to. She turned to face him, this complicated man who was learning to want things beyond survival and power. We're going to have the messy, beautiful, terrifying future we build together, complete with your overprotective security measures and my inability to follow reasonable safety protocols. Min Jae kissed her, slow, deep, full of promise. And there, in their Maldives bungalow, with an armed drone patrolling outside and June's girlfriend monitoring dark web chatter, they made love like 2 people determined to claim happiness despite every reason it seemed impossible. What neither of them knew was that in approximately 6 weeks, Nia would take a pregnancy test in their Seoul apartment and discover that their future was arriving faster and in greater numbers than either of them had planned. But that night, they had paradise, each other, and 4 more days before reality came crashing back. It was enough. For now. Before we go any further, if this story already has you hooked, subscribe now, because the next twist is even crazier. And drop a comment. What country or city are you watching from? Nia had survived morning sickness exactly 3 times before realizing that morning was a cruel lie invented by people who'd never been pregnant. It was all-day sickness, all-night sickness, and currently staring at Min Jae's expensive toilet at 2M sickness. I'm dying, she announced dramatically, sitting on the bathroom floor of their penthouse. This is it. Tell my students I love them. Tell Keisha she can have my shoe collection. Min Jae, who'd woken up the moment she'd left the bed because apparently crime lords slept like paranoid cats, crouched beside her with water and crackers. You're not dying. The doctor said this is normal. The doctor is a liar and I want to fight him. Her. The doctor is a her. And you threatened to fight her last week too. Because she said I was having twins. Min Jae. Twins. As in 2 whole babies. That's not a pregnancy, that's an invasion. Despite the situation, Min Jae smiled. That soft smile he reserved only for her. You're going to be an amazing mother. I'm going to be a tired mother. There's a difference. Nia accepted the crackers, nibbling cautiously. Also, your children are apparently trying to kill me from the inside. They have your overachieving energy. My children? Last week when they kicked for the first time, you said they had your stubborn personality. They contain multitudes. It's their brand. Before Min Jae could respond, his phone erupted with the orchestral ringtone that meant only one thing. His mother had acquired new information and was calling to discuss it with the subtlety of a tactical missile. Min Jae looked at the phone like it was a live grenade. It's 2 a.m. Your mother operates outside the constraints of time and reasonable calling hours, Nia said. Answer it before she sends June to check if we're dead. He answered on speaker. Mother, it's Ni is pregnant with twins, and you didn't call me immediately. Mrs. Choi's voice could probably be heard in Busan. I had to hear from Dr. Kim at church. She told Mrs. Park, who told the entire congregation, and I looked like a fool not knowing my own son's reproductive success. Reproductive success, Nia repeated, giggling despite her nausea. That's what we're calling it. How did you even know? Min Jae demanded. We just found out yesterday. The doctor has patient confidentiality. Dr. Kim's daughter went to school with you. She owes me a favor from when I got her son out of legal trouble. There are no secrets in Seoul, Min Jae. I taught you this. That's deeply concerning from a privacy standpoint, Nia said. Privacy is for people without nosy mothers-in-law. Now, have you been taking your vitamins? Are you eating enough? Min Jae, is she eating enough? She looks thin on the security camera footage. What security camera footage? The ones I had June install in your living room for safety purposes. Mother, don't mother me. You married into this family. You accept surveillance. It's tradition. Mrs. Choi's tone shifted to something softer. But truly, Nia, how are you feeling? Morning sickness. All-day sickness, Nia corrected. Your grandchildren are overachievers. They're trying to evict me from my own body. Mrs. Choi laughed, warm, genuine. This is good sign. Strong babies. My Min Jae made me so sick I couldn't look at Rice for 6 months. Look how he turned out. A crime lord with trust issues? Nia offered. A successful businessman with a beautiful wife. Mrs. Choi corrected firmly. We don't use the C word on recorded lines. Nia. This is basic operational security. Min Jae dropped his head into his hands. This conversation is a nightmare. This conversation is 2 a.m. June's voice suddenly joined the call. Mrs. Choi, did you conference me in? Of course. You're like second son. You should know about the babies. I already knew about the babies. Boss told me yesterday. Why am I on this call? Because Min SEO is sleeping next to you, and I want to know when you're giving me more grandchildren. The silence was deafening. I'm hanging up now, June said quickly. Congratulations, boss. Nia, feel better. Mrs. Choi, please stop hacking our phones. I'm not hacking. I'm staying informed. The line went dead. Nia looked at Min Jae, who looked like he'd aged 10 years in a 5-minute phone call. Your mother has cameras in our living room. I'll have them removed tomorrow. She's going to put them back. Probably. And she somehow knows everything before we tell her. It's her superpower. I've accepted it. Nia laughed, then immediately regretted it as another wave of nausea hit. Min Jae was there instantly, supporting her, his hand rubbing gentle circles on her back. You know, she said between deep breaths, when I got on that plane to Seoul, I thought the craziest thing that would happen was meeting a crime boss. I did not anticipate. Almost getting kidnapped, threatening gang lords, marrying into a family with surveillance issues, or growing 2 tiny humans who apparently inherited their father's intensity. Regrets? Min Jae asked quietly. Nia looked at him. This man who'd reorganized his entire life around loving her, who woke up at 2 a.m. to hold her hair back, who was learning to be a husband and would soon learn to be a father. Not a single one. He kissed her forehead, soft and reverent. I love you. I love you too. Even though your mother is definitely still listening through those cameras. From the living room, barely audible, came a muffled, I am not. MRS, CHOI, they yelled simultaneously. Okay, fine. I'm watching, but only because I care. Also, NIH, ginger tea helps with nausea. I'm sending June with some in the morning. Min-jae looked at the ceiling like he was asking his deceased father for patience. Nia just laughed because this absolutely chaotic, privacy-invading, overwhelming family was hers now. And honestly, she wouldn't change it for anything. Even if Mrs. Choi was definitely, absolutely, 100% still watching through those cameras. Brace up, something tragic is about to happen. Before we proceed, what country are you watching from? The kidnapping happened on their last day in the Maldives, which Nia would later think was cosmically unfair. They'd made it through the entire honeymoon, through drone surveillance and dark web threats and Mrs. Choi's 2 a.m. phone calls, only to have everything go sideways 12 hours before their flight home. She wanted to go shopping. Just simple, tourist shopping at the resort's marketplace for gifts to bring back. Min Jae had been in a video conference with his sole crew about the Kong faction's movements. June and Min Seo were doing a final security sweep of the bungalows. I'll be fine, Nia had insisted. It's literally 200 feet away, in broad daylight, on a resort with security. Min Jae had looked torn, the eternal struggle between respecting her independence and his bone-deep need to protect her. Take your phone. Keep it on. I'll watch you from the deck. So romantic. Nothing says, I love you like surveillance. Welcome to marriage with me. She'd kissed him, grabbed her bag, and walked toward the marketplace, feeling the sun warm on her skin and thinking about the twins growing inside her. 6 weeks pregnant, and already they were making their presence known through constant nausea and the way she couldn't look at coffee without gagging. The marketplace was busy, tourists browsing sarongs and jewelry, vendors calling out prices. Neo was examining a carved wooden turtle for Mrs. Choi because apparently she was the type of daughter-in-law who bought gifts for her surveillance-happy mother-in-law when someone bumped into her. Sorry, she said automatically, turning. The man smiled. Too friendly. Too close. American. Warning bells went off in her head. That vice principal instinct that had kept her safe through a decade of school violence and sketchy situations. I'm actually busy. She felt the pinch in her arm before she could finish the sentence. Sharp, quick, and within seconds, the world started tilting sideways like someone had rotated reality 90 degrees. No, she managed, trying to pull away, but her legs weren't working right. The marketplace blurred. Voices sounded underwater. Strong arms caught her as she fell. Not gentle, efficient. The last thing she saw before everything went dark was her phone, clutched in her hand, still connected to Min Jae, sliding across the pavement. Min Jae was reviewing security reports when he heard it through the phone connection. Nia's voice cut off mid-sentence. Then a thud. Then nothing. Nia. He was already moving, vaulting over the deck railing because the stairs would take too long. Nia. The phone connection stayed open. He could hear movement, shuffling, a car door. And then, deliberately, someone picked up the phone. Min JSSI. The voice was male, Korean, and far too calm. Your wife is with us now. The Kong faction sends their regards. The phone went dead. For exactly 3 seconds, Min Jae's mind went completely blank, a white-hot void where thought should exist. Then something primal took over, something he'd kept locked away because Nia had made him want to be better than his worst instincts. That lock shattered. June. His voice came out wrong. Too loud, too raw, barely human. They took her. The Kong faction took Nia. June appeared within seconds. Min Seo right behind him, both immediately understanding the situation from his expression alone. I'm tracking her phone. Min Seo was already typing. It's still on, moving east toward the main island. They're not even trying to hide. Because they want me to follow, Min Jae said, and his voice sounded foreign to his own ears, flat, cold, murderous. They want me emotional, reckless. Boss, June started. They took my pregnant wife. Min Jae's hands were shaking, not with fear, but with rage so pure it felt like poison in his veins. They don't understand what they've done. They think this is business. Territory. Power plays. He looked at June, and his second-in-command actually took a step back. This isn't business anymore, Min Jae continued, his voice dropping to something that barely qualified as human. This is war. Give me every asset we have in the region. Contact the Seoul crew. I want the Kong faction's entire operation mapped within the hour. What are you planning? Min Seo asked, though her expression suggested she already knew. I'm going to get my wife back. Min Jae was already moving toward their bungalow, toward the weapons he'd brought despite Nia's protests about relaxing vacation vibes. And then I'm going to burn down everything the Kong faction has ever built. Every business, every contact, every safe house. I'm going to make them understand that touching her was the last mistake they'll ever make. Boss, we should think strategically. Min Jae spun around, and even June, who'd known him for 15 years, flinched at the expression on his face. She's 6 weeks pregnant with twins, my twins. They drugged her, put their hands on her, took her from me. His voice cracked. There is no strategy. There's only getting her back and making sure everyone who helped this happen regrets being born. June nodded slowly. Then we go to war. No. Min Jae checked his gun, the one he'd hoped he wouldn't need on his honeymoon. I go war. You two provide support. Because when I find them, I'm not negotiating. I'm not compromising. I'm not being the reasonable crime lord who thinks about long-term consequences. He thought about Nia, her laugh, her strength, the way she'd stood in that warehouse and refused to be afraid. He thought about the twins growing inside her, his children, his future. He thought about the promise he'd made at their wedding to protect her, love her, build a life with her. And he thought about what he would do to anyone who threatened that. Min Seo's laptop beeped. I've got her location. They've stopped moving. There's a compound on the east side of the main island. Abandoned resort. Off the grid. How many men? Thermal imaging shows at least 15. Maybe more. 15 men between him and Nia. Min Jae smiled, and it was the smile that had made grown criminals wet themselves. Good, he said softly. I was hoping for a challenge. June pulled out his phone, already calling in reinforcement from their network. But Min Jae was done waiting, done planning, done being patient. They'd taken his wife, his pregnant wife. And now they're going to learn why the Biko clan had survived 3 generations of gang wars. Not because they were the biggest, not because they were the richest, but because when you threatened their family, they became something worse than criminals. They became monsters. And Min Jae was about to remind Seoul, and every other faction watching, exactly what kind of monster they created. Nia woke up with a headache that felt like someone had used her skull for batting practice, and the immediate realization that she was zip-tied to a metal chair in what looked like an abandoned hotel room. The walls were water-stained, the windows boarded up, and 3 men stood guard by the door, looking significantly less confident than kidnappers should probably look. She's awake, one of them said in Korean, then switched to broken English. You okay? Do I look okay? Nia's voice came out raspy. I'm pregnant, zip-tied to a chair, and pretty sure I was drugged. So no, I'm not okay. I'm the opposite of okay. I'm whatever word means planning violence. The guards exchanged nervous glances. The youngest one, couldn't be more than 22, actually looked guilty. We didn't know about baby, he said. Boss didn't tell us. Just said, bring the American woman. Well, congratulations. You kidnapped a pregnant woman. Real tough guys. Nia tested the zip ties. Tight, but not impossible. She'd learned a thing or two from Min Seo during their honeymoon security briefings. You know my husband is going to kill you, right? Like actually kill you. Not metaphorically. Literally end your existence. Your husband will negotiate, the older guard said, but he sounded like he was trying to convince himself. This is business. Always business. You clearly don't know Min Jae. Nia laughed, sharp and slightly unhinged. He once made a man disappear for insulting his mother's kimchi. What do you think he'll do to people who drugged his pregnant wife? The youngest guard's face went pale. The door burst open and a man in his 40s strode in. Expensive suit, cruel eyes, and the energy of someone who'd made terrible decisions and was about to make them everyone else's problem. This had to be Kong, the faction leader. Mrs. Choi, he said in perfect English, smiling like they were old friends. My apologies for the accommodations. This will all be over soon. Let me guess, Nia said, channeling every ounce of vice principal authority into her voice. You're using me as bait. Min Jae comes to rescue me. You ambush him, take over his territory. Very original. Did you steal that plan from a Netflix show? Kang's smile tightened. Your husband has something I want. Territory in Gangnam. Protection contracts in Itaewon. He's been refusing to negotiate. But now, he gestured at her. Now he'll be motivated. You're an idiot. Excuse me. I said you're an idiot. You fundamentally misunderstood who you're dealing with. Nia leaned forward as much as the zip ties allowed. Min Jae doesn't negotiate when he's calm and rational. You think he's going to negotiate when you've kidnapped his pregnant wife? You haven't created leverage. You've created a suicide mission. Kang's expression darkened. Big words for someone tied to a chair. Big words from someone who's about to learn what Min Jae looks like when you take away everything he's trying to become. Nia met his eyes. He's been trying to be better, less violent, more strategic. I've been teaching him that not everything requires bloodshed. But you, she smiled. And it was Min Jae's smile, cold, dangerous, promising pain. You just reminded him why everyone used to be terrified of the Biko clan. Before Kang could respond, the building shook. Not an earthquake, an explosion. Close. Deliberate. The lights went out. Emergency lighting flickered on, bathing everything in red. And then the screaming started. Min Jae moved through the compound like death wearing a custom suit. He'd come in through the service entrance. 15 men guarding the compound, just like Min SEO had said. There were now 12. The other 3 had made the mistake of trying to stop him. June was somewhere above, providing sniper support. Min SEO had killed their communications and was feeding him thermal imaging through his earpiece. But Min Jae barely needed it. Rage had sharpened his senses to something preternatural. Second floor, East Wing. Min SEO's voice crackled. That's where Nia's signal is strongest. Hostiles. 4 in the room. 3 in the hallway. Boss. Her voice hesitated. Try not to kill everyone. We still need to operate in this region. Min Jae said nothing, because he was absolutely going to kill everyone. He took the stairs 3 at a time, silent despite his speed. The first guard in the hallway barely had time to register his presence before Min Jae's knife found his throat. The second managed to raise his weapon. Min Jae snapped his wrist, took the gun, and used it to drop the third guard with a headshot that echoed through the corridor. Efficient, professional, terrifying. The door to Nia's room was locked. Min Jae kicked it open, the wood splintering like it was made of paper. The scene inside made his vision go red. Nia, zip-tied to a chair, bruise forming on her arm where they'd injected her. 3 guards scrambling for weapons. And Kang, standing behind Nia with a gun pressed to her temple. Stop, Kang said, his voice shaking slightly. Or I shoot her. Min Jae froze. But his eyes held something that made even Kang take a step back. You're already dead, Min Jae said softly. You just don't know it yet. I have a gun to your wife's head, and I have 15 men positioned around this building. My second in command has a sniper rifle pointed at your skull through the window behind you. My tech specialist has already transferred all your offshore accounts to charity, specifically to organizations that fight human trafficking, which seemed poetic. And in approximately 30 seconds, the Seoul police are going to receive an anonymous tip about this location, complete with evidence of your entire operation. Kang's hand trembled. You're bluffing. Am I? Min Jae's smile was surgical. You want to negotiate? Fine. Here's my offer. Let her go, and I'll kill you quickly. Keep that gun to her head, and I'll make sure you live long enough to regret every decision that led to this moment. Baby, Nia said, her voice surprisingly steady. I'm okay. But these zip ties are really uncomfortable, so if we could speed this along. Despite everything, the danger, the rage, the fear, Min Jae felt something warm bloom in his chest. Even kidnapped and threatened, Nia was still somehow the calmest person in the room. Last chance, Min Jae said to Kang. Choose. The red laser appeared on Kang's forehead. June's aim, steady and true. Kang's resolve crumbled. The gun lowered, and Min Jae moved. Later, Nia wouldn't be able to describe exactly what happened. Just that Min Jae crossed the room impossibly fast, disarmed Kong with brutal efficiency and had him on the ground before anyone could react. The other guards dropped their weapons immediately, hands up, clearly deciding that whatever Kong was paying them wasn't worth dying for. Min-jae cut through Nia's zip ties with his knife, his hands shaking slightly as he checked her over. "Are you hurt?" The babies were okay," Nia said firmly, cupping his face. "All three of us. We're okay." He pulled her in his arms so tightly she could barely breathe, his whole body shaking with aftershock adrenaline and relief. His voice broke. "I thought I lost you. Takes more than some second-rate kidnappers to get rid of me." She pulled back to look at him. "Though we are definitely discussing your definition of rescue mission versus one-man war. There's a difference. Not when you're involved, apparently." Behind them, June appeared in the doorway. "Boss, we need to move. Police are 5 minutes out." Min-jae nodded, but didn't let go of Nia. "What about Kong? What about him?" Nia looked at the man still on the ground, and her expression hardened. "He drugged a pregnant woman. That's not gang business. That's just evil." Min-jae's expression went cold. "June, make sure Kong understands that if he ever comes near Seoul again, what happened today will look like mercy." "Already handled, boss." They left the compound as sirens wailed in the distance. Min-jae supporting Nia, June covering their exit, and Min Seo remotely wiping their digital presence from the building's remaining security systems. Paradise had become hell, but they'd survived. Together. The flight back to Seoul was tense. Min-jae had insisted on a full medical exam the moment they reached the airport. An entire medical team waiting in a private hangar, because apparently when you're a crime lord with unlimited resources and a kidnapped pregnant wife, you don't wait for normal hospital protocols. "Heartbeats are strong," Dr. Kim said, moving the ultrasound wand across Nia's still flat stomach. "Both babies are completely fine. No signs of distress from the sedative. You were lucky they used a mild dose." "Lucky," Nia repeated flatly. "That's definitely the word I'd use for getting kidnapped. You know what I mean?" Dr. Kim smiled gently. "The twins are fighters. Like their parents." Min-jae hadn't let go of Nia's hand since they'd left the Maldives. His thumb traced circles on her palm, a nervous gesture she'd never seen from him before. The man who'd single-handedly taken down a kidnapping operation looked like he was barely holding himself together. "We're okay," Nia said softly, squeezing his hand. "Really, I'm okay. You were taken from me." His voice was raw, stripped of the usual control. "They drugged you. Put their hands on you. On our children." He looked at her, and his eyes held something terrifying. Not rage anymore, but cold calculation. "The Kong faction still exists. That's a problem. Min-jae, I let them live because getting you to safety was priority. But that was temporary mercy." His expression went flat, emotionless. "They don't get to keep existing after what they did." Dr. Kim quietly excused herself, recognizing a private conversation when she heard one. Nia sat up, still holding his hand. "What are you planning?" "War. Simple. Direct. Terrifying. The Kong faction has operations in Seoul, Busan, and Incheon. Protection rackets, gambling dens, trafficking routes. By the end of the week, they'll have nothing. No territory, no income, no reputation. You're going to destroy them. I'm going to erase them." Min-jae met her eyes. "They touched you. They put our children at risk. That doesn't get forgiven. That gets answered with overwhelming force that makes every other faction understand. You don't touch my family." Nia should have been horrified. Should have tried to talk him down, appeal to his better nature, remind him that violence only bred more violence. But she was tired, still shaky from the kidnapping, and honestly, a part of her, the part that had grown up in Atlanta, that had seen violence up close, that understood how the real world worked, wanted to watch him burn it all down. "Okay," she said quietly. Min-jae blinked. "Okay. Yeah, okay. Burn it down." She leaned forward, her voice steady. "But you don't do it alone. You take June, you take the crew, and you do it smart. I didn't survive a kidnapping just to become a widow, because you went full revenge mode, without backup." Something softened in his expression. "You're not going to try to stop me. Baby, they kidnapped a pregnant woman. Your pregnant wife. If you weren't planning to destroy them, I'd be questioning your priorities. She touched his face. But I also need you to come home. These twins need a father. I need a husband. So you do what you need to do, but you do it smart and you come back to me. Deal. He kissed her, desperate, relieved, grateful. Deal. Seoul had never seen anything like what happened over the next 72 hours. The Kong faction's gambling den in Gangnam, raided by police after an anonymous tip provided detailed evidence of money laundering. Their protection rackets in Itaewon suddenly found their clients unwilling to pay and extremely willing to testify about extortion. Their trafficking operation in Incheon, intercepted by a multi-agency task force that had received a comprehensive dossier of routes, contacts, and schedules. It was surgical, devastating, complete. Min SEO had orchestrated the digital warfare, draining accounts, exposing operations, and feeding information to law enforcement with the precision of someone who viewed destruction as an art form. June led the physical operations, protection details that accidentally intercepted illegal shipments, quiet conversations with rival factions about how the Kong territory was now available, and strategic demonstrations of force that left no doubt about the Biko clan's capabilities. And Min Jae? Min Jae was everywhere and nowhere. A ghost that haunted every Kong operation, dismantling an empire with the cold efficiency of someone who'd moved beyond anger into pure, calculated retribution. Boss, June reported on day 3. Kang's trying to flee to Japan. His accounts are frozen. His people have abandoned him. And every port in Korea has his photo with instructions to detain. Let him run, Min Jae said, standing in his office overlooking Seoul. Make sure everyone sees him run. I want every criminal in this city to understand what happens when you come after my family. You don't die quickly. You lose everything first. Then you run. Then you spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder. That's significantly more terrifying than just killing him, Hannah observed from her position by the door. That's the point. By the end of the week, the Kong faction didn't exist anymore. Not destroyed in some dramatic shootout. Just methodically dismantled, piece by piece, until there was nothing left but cautionary tales and empty buildings. The other factions got the message. You could compete with the Biko clan. You could negotiate, strategize, even occasionally win territory disputes. But you didn't touch Min Jae's family. That was the line. Cross it, and you didn't just face consequences. You faced obliteration. Nia watched from their apartment as Min Jae returned home each night, exhausted, grim, but always softening the moment he saw her. He'd check on her obsessively, his hands drifting to her stomach, his eyes searching her face for signs of trauma. I'm okay, she'd say every time. We're okay. I know. He'd pull her close, breathing her in. I need to see it. Need to know you're here. On the 7th night, when it was finally over, when the Kong faction was nothing but a memory and a warning, Min Jae came home and finally broke. He didn't cry. He just held her, his entire body shaking with the weight of everything he'd done, everything he'd almost lost. I would have burned down the entire city, he whispered against her hair. If they'd hurt you, if they'd hurt our children, there's no limit to what I would have done. I know, Nia said softly. I know, baby. But you didn't have to. We're here. We're safe. You got us back. And I'm never letting you go again. Good thing I have no plans to leave. They stood like that for a long time, two people who'd found each other against impossible odds and refused to let anything, not danger, not violence, not entire criminal organizations, tear them apart. Outside, Seoul glittered with neon and possibility. Inside, they held each other and rebuilt the peace that had been shattered. One breath at a time, one moment at a time, together. 7 months later, Nia was absolutely, completely, monumentally done with being pregnant. I look like I swallowed a planet, she announced from the couch in their apartment, which now had throw pillows, her victory, and approximately 15 security cameras. Min Jae's compromise. A whole planet. Maybe 2. I can't see my feet. I haven't seen my feet in 6 weeks. You're beautiful, Min Jae said automatically, bringing her the weird pickle and ice cream combination she'd been craving for 3 days straight. I'm enormous. There's a difference. She accepted the food with the gratitude of someone who'd been growing two humans and was very tired of it. Also, your children are having a dance party on my bladder. Again, they have your energy and it's exhausting. My energy? Last week you said they had your stubborn personality. They contain multitudes. It's their brand. Nia shifted uncomfortably. Also, I think that's when her water broke. All over their very expensive Italian leather couch. Oh, she said calmly. Well, that's happening now. Min Jae, who'd faced down rival gangs and kidnapping operations without flinching, went absolutely pale. Now, as in now, as in your children have decided that 3 a.m. on a Tuesday is an excellent time to make their entrance into the world. Yes, now. What followed was chaos that would later become family legend. Min Jae called June in a panic, who called Min Seo, who called the hospital, who called Mrs. Choi, because apparently hospital staff knew who to alert when the Biko clan leader's wife went into labor. Within 15 minutes, they had a motorcade to the hospital that looked like a presidential security detail. This is excessive. Nia panted through a contraction. It's childbirth, not a military operation. You were kidnapped 7 months ago, Min Jae said, holding her hand so tightly she thought her bones might crack. There will be security. There are 12 cars, Min Jae. 12. I wanted to bring 20. June talked me down. The hospital had prepared a private floor. Not a private room, an entire floor. Because apparently when you're married to organized crime royalty, you don't share space with normal people having normal births. Mrs. Choi arrived before they'd even gotten Nia into the delivery room, wearing a Chanel suit at 4 a.m. like she'd been waiting for this moment her entire life. Which, knowing her, she probably had. NIEH. She swept in like a tiny, well-dressed hurricane. You are having my grandchildren. This is most important day. I brought seaweed soup for after. Very traditional, very nutritious. Also, I called Pastor to bless babies immediately upon arrival. Mrs. Choi, Nia groaned through another contraction. I love you, but if you don't let the medical professionals do their job, I will personally. She's crowning, the doctor announced. What? What followed was 14 hours of labor that tested everyone's sanity. Min Jae refused to leave Nia's side, despite looking like he might pass out every time she screamed. Mrs. Choi provided running commentary in Korean and English, including helpful observations like breathing is important and maybe push harder. June and Min Seo waited outside with the crew, who'd apparently taken bets on the baby's genders and birth weights. I hate you, Nia told Min Jae during hour 9. I hate you so much. You did this to me. I know. I'm sorry. I love you. I'm never having sex with you again. That's fair. I'm serious. Never. We're getting separate bedrooms. Whatever you want. Maybe separate apartments. I'll start looking tomorrow. Dr. Kim, who delivered half of Seoul's elite babies, just smiled. She doesn't mean it. They never mean it. I mean it. Nia roared, then immediately screamed as another contraction hit. At 5:47 p.m., after 14 hours of labor that felt like 14 years, their daughter arrived first, screaming her displeasure at being evicted from her comfortable home, already showing signs of her mother's attitude. She's perfect, Min Jae whispered, tears streaming down his face as he held her. She looks like you. She looks like an angry potato, Nia said, exhausted but smiling. Our angry potato. 7 minutes later, their son followed, quieter, calmer, but with a grip that already suggested he'd inherited his father's intensity. Mrs. Choi burst into the room before anyone could stop her, took one look at her grandchildren, and promptly started crying while taking approximately 7,000 photos. They are beautiful, perfect, best babies in all of Korea, maybe all of Asia, possibly the world. She was already video calling what appeared to be her entire church group. Look at their faces. Min Jae's nose. Nia's eyes. Perfection. Mother, Min Jae said weakly, still holding his daughter like she might disappear. Please stop broadcasting our children to the internet. This is family group chat. Only 300 people. Very private. June poked his head in, grinning wider than Nia had ever seen. Boss, what are their names? Min Jae and Nia looked at each other. They'd argued about this for months. Korean names versus American names versus some combination that would satisfy both cultures and Mrs. Choi's expectations. Jiwoo, Nia said, looking at their daughter. For her, it means wisdom and universe, because she's going to need wisdom to deal with this family. And James, Min-jae added, studying their son. American name, but Korean middle name, Taeyong. Sunday. Because every crime lord needs a son with a sunshine name, Nia teased. Because he's already bright enough to blind me. Min-jae corrected, his voice thick with emotion. Mrs. Choi was openly weeping now. Perfect names. I already ordered birth announcement cards. 500 cards. With embossed gold lettering. How did you order cards when they were just born? Min-jae started, then stopped. Never mind. I don't want to know. The next week was absolute chaos. Mrs. Choi moved into their guest room temporarily. Everyone knew this was permanent. June and Min Seo took turns on security detail, which was excessive but also kind of sweet. The crew sent enough flowers to fill a botanical garden and gifts that range from appropriate, baby clothes, to deeply concerning, a tiny bulletproof vest with a note reading, "Just in case," from Hannah. Nia was exhausted, overwhelmed, and somehow deliriously happy. Watching Min-jae hold their children, this dangerous man who'd built an empire on fear and violence, singing lullabies in Korean at 3 a.m. while pacing their living room was everything. "You're good at this," she said one night, finding him in the nursery they'd spent months preparing, holding both twins while they slept. "I'm terrified," he admitted. "What if I mess them up? What if they grow up afraid of me? What if they grow up knowing their father loves them unconditionally? What if they grow up strong and safe because you and your overprotective crew refuse to let anything hurt them? What if they grow up with their grandmother's stubbornness, your determination, and my complete inability to follow rules?" She kissed him softly. "They're going to be fine. We're going to be fine. Even with mother living here permanently. Especially with your mother living here permanently. Someone needs to keep you humble." From the doorway, Mrs. Choi's voice, "I heard that. Also, Jiwoo needs diaper change. I can tell from here. Grandmother instinct. How do you even?" Min-jae started. "I know things. Now give me my granddaughter. You are holding her wrong. I'm holding her perfectly. Your elbow is at wrong angle. Very bad for baby spine. I read 17 books." Nia watched them argue about proper baby holding technique and felt something warm bloom in her chest. This life, messy, chaotic, filled with surveillance cameras and overprotective grandmothers and a husband who'd literally burned down a criminal organization because someone threatened her, was everything she'd never known she wanted. "So," Min Seo said, appearing with June, both holding coffee like it was life support, "anyone want to bet on when Mrs. Choi starts planning their first birthday party?" "She planned it 3 months ago," June said. "I've seen the Pinterest boards." "There are Pinterest boards?" Min-jae looked horrified. 17 of them, organized by theme. Nia laughed, full, genuine, exhausted laughter. "Our children are 1 week old." "Your children are Korean royalty," Mrs. Choi corrected, now successfully holding Jiwoo despite Min-jae's protests. "They need proper celebration. Also, I'm thinking about their future education. There is excellent academy in Gangnam. Mother, they can't even hold their heads up yet. It is never too early to plan. Waiting lists are very long." Min-jae looked at Nia with an expression that clearly said, "Help me." Nia just smiled. "Welcome to parenthood, crime boss, where the real battle isn't rival gangs. It's your mother's Pinterest boards." He groaned, but he was smiling too, because all of this chaos and love and absurdity, was theirs. So here's the real question, my friends. Would you survive having Mrs. Choi as a mother-in-law? Could you handle a grandmother with surveillance equipment and 17 Pinterest boards? And most importantly, if you flew 13 hours for a blind date and ended up married to a crime lord with twins and an overprotective family, would you call it a disaster or the best decision of your life? Drop a comment with "worth it" if you believe the craziest love stories make the best families. Hit subscribe if you're not like the Kong faction, bitter, lonely, and permanently afraid of what happens when you mess with the wrong people. And smash that like button if you think Jiwoo and James are going to grow up causing absolute chaos in Seoul. Because sometimes the best adventures start with bad decisions, pushy mothers, and a man in a burgundy suit who just needs someone brave enough to love him. The Yendi, or is it? Mrs. Choi's already planning the twins' first birthday. There might be 17 more chapters in our future.